Every 2 to 3 years you were reviewed. She also said you would get 2 weeks a year to go visit your family, or you could choose to do some volunteer work in a different monastery or another country. So, at the age of 21, she decided to go back to Bermuda to visit her birth mother and family. She said she returned in her nun outfit, and then her cousins encouraged her to not wear the loose covering clothing and wear tight-fitted jeans and drink alcohol and go to the clubs. She said everyone was giving her lots of attention because she had a slim body and American accent. She said she wasn't paying the guys no mind. That night they went to a club bar. When at the bar, she was persuaded to dance with a guy she must have liked or thought was cute. And feeling the effects of alcohol, plus the curiosity of never being with a guy before. And to make matters worse, she said she was feeling his arousal through his pants, and one thing led to another. After her trip to Bermuda, she returned to the monastery in America. Their rules were that they would give you a random test after your vacation to see if you'd been with a man because they were strict. So a week later they gave my mum a random test and they found out she had had sex. She had got pregnant from that one time and was pregnant with my sister. They didn't know she was pregnant. She didn't even know at that time. But the rules were, after the test, if you passed, you got rewarded, and if you failed, you were out because you had broken your vows. So she moved back to her family home in New Jersey. Soon after, she decided to move back to Bermuda to have her baby. Once back in Bermuda, I guess things didn't work out with my sister's daddy. So then she met my daddy, and 2 years later they had me, and then they married. I don't think the marriage lasted too long though, since I only have slight memories of us all living together. So I guess her goal after that was to provide for her 2 children and give us a good life. Now my father was a plumber by trade. He was into fishing, and he was also a twin. He had a twin sister and was one of 4 boys. He had been married 3 times and divorced all 3 times in the end. I think after the 3rd failed attempt at marriage, it had hurt him mentally. He had a daughter with his second wife, so I also have a little sister. One of my uncles, the youngest, was a tennis player. The other one hung himself in front of his girlfriend's door. She must have come out her front door one morning and found him hanging. I hear she was never the same again after finding his lifeless body. The crazy part was he had 2 daughters with the next woman. And then lastly, my beloved Uncle Bull. He was a gangster and got murdered. They say he got set up by his girlfriend. He is the only person I have ever felt a connection with as a father figure. So, I look at my 2 parental examples. On my dad's side, all I saw were weak men per se, and I vowed I would never be a weak man like them. On my mother's side, although my mom meant well mostly, she was in her own little realm world. She just pushed her efforts into work, so I and my sister had what we needed and a roof over our heads. My mum's side of the family, particularly the women, my older cousins, were the rebels per se. They had guys eating out the palms of their hands, and they took full advantage of the many guys that fancied them. They would juggle the men with their time, having them visit at different times, and had each of the men paying the same bills so they could just pocket the extra money. And they were so sharp they didn't even have to give up sex. So it wasn't like they were whores or women that slept with a lot of guys. They just had a way of getting whatever they wanted from the guys that liked them. These guys were all fools, I thought. I'll be thinking at least get some pussy sex if you're going to buy her the world. And they got all types of shit, from furniture, jewellery, their bills paid, and even toys for their kids. They were even getting these men to pay their rent. All these were all regular working guys, all looking for love and being strung along like fools. I knew no one would ever play me for an ass like that. So, from seeing my father's side and their example of males, and my mother's side of her family, particularly my older girl cousins that could control males like fools easily, I knew I would have to create my own path in life. I couldn't follow any other man's lead when it came to women, love and relationships. Now don't get me wrong, I never thought of them, my girl cousins, in a bad way for doing it, playing guys for fools. It was just the way it was. They didn't have to work either. Bills were paid and they didn't need for nothing. Their control was pretty impressive, if I must say so myself. But in my eyes, it looked like all the men in the world had a weakness for sweetness or was just weak, period. But overall, that shit made me think love and anything that has to do with love is all bullshit. I don't know if I set up my own defence against feelings, but the final outcome, my conclusion, is, this must be the reason why I never believed in love at all. Personally, I think it's all overrated. It's like man had told woman all he could tell her, all the sweet stuff, so he made up the word love to fuck with their women's minds a bit more. So all in all, that still don't answer the question to why I am the way I am. It will just give a clearer picture on how I may think of situations sometimes. Let's look more into my story and see what my life has in store for me. I was born December the 11th at the King Edward Memorial Hospital in Bermuda. It's only one hospital on the island of Bermuda, so this is basically the birthplace for everyone, unless you were born at home or on your way to the hospital. When I was born, my mother said I weighed 9 pounds 10 ounces. This must have been very big for a baby, because my sister weighed about 5 or 6 pounds. She says I was too big, so they had to give her a C-section to get me out. Basically, a C-section is when they cut the woman's stomach open to pull the baby out. She said when I was born, I was so fat and chubby. Now at this time, she had moved back in with her birth mother, and when her birth mother, my granny, came to the hospital the day I was born, the first thing she said when she saw me was, "He looks like a fat little tub." And from that moment, the tub nickname for me was born. I was a fat baby, but I haven't been fat since. Back in them days, we had metal basins or tubs that we would put out in the sun to warm up water for hot baths. So I guess she felt I looked fat, like a little round basin. But either way, the nickname stuck. My mum said when she took me home, my granny kept calling me her little tub, so everyone just called me that. The nickname also worked for me because my real birth name is Janelle, and I always felt it was too girly. To make matters worse, I had a girl in my primary school class with the same name. Hers were just spelled different. So, if anyone asked me my name, I just said Tub. Later in life, if you didn't go to school with me or work on a job with me, you never knew my real birth government name. Even though I didn't like my real birth name, I did not hide it. I just would say Tub and leave it as that. If someone asked my real name, I'd tell them, of course, but I would also explain the pronunciation and spelling so they don't think it's a girl's name. Not until I got in high school, secondary school, did I not give a fuck about the name no more, and I guess I just accepted it. I wasn't too worried about how it sounded or pronunciation no more. If you are calling me, I'll know, or just call me Tub. I realise the name don't make the man person. The man person makes the name. Plus, I was already in love with the name Tub by now, so it was all good.